The story I'm going to tell you concerns something that we may all be feeling right now, living in these uncertain times. It also concerns leadership, leadership in the time of crisis, the decisions that those in charge have to make in order to protect the welfare of others. There was once a city ringed with high walls that stood on top of a hill. Down below, surrounding it, were valleys, meandering rivers, green, verdant forests, and fields. But this was not a time of peace. It was a time of uncertainty. For those living inside the city had ringed the walls with fear, because outside there lived a dragon, swooping and swirling over the treetops, the valleys, over the city itself, green-scaled, yellow-eyed, red flickering tongue. Wherever it went, it spread like a mantle, that sense of fear and terror. And anyone brave enough to leave the safety of that high-walled city would be confronted by that watchful, waiting dragon, green-scaled, yellow-eyed, red flickering tongue. The eyes would glitter, and it would open its great mouth and roar with all its might, showing its sharp white teeth. So people did not leave the safety of that high-walled city. And there they lived, quivering, sharing that sense of fear. But after time, food stocks and water began to run low. People began to starve, began to suffer from thirst, and they all looked to their queen who ruled that city, their queen, for guidance. And she could see her people were suffering. And often in the evening she would walk the high ramparts, a cloak wrapped around her, and she'd look down from the walls of that high city, look down at the patchwork quilt of fields below, which were ripening with corn, wheat, and barley, that she knew if these were harvested, those fields, there would be more than enough to feed her people. But that dragon inspired fear. So one day, she took the decision that she would confront that dragon and she would save her people. So she got up early the next morning. She donned her fine silvery armor. She picked up the shield and the sword that had been passed down through the generations of warring kings and queens. She commanded that the gate be opened, and there, with her shield and sword, she stepped out from the safety of that city into the light, where before her lay the dragon waiting. Green-scaled, yellow-eyed, red flickering tongue. It watched her, tail wrapped around its feet like that of a cat's. Its gaze met hers, and for a moment she hesitated. She felt that flutter of fear in her chest. Then she took a deep breath, raised her shield higher and her sword, and she stepped forward. And the dragon's eyes glittered. It opened its great mouth. It roared with all its might that caused the ground to tremble beneath her feet. It showed its sharp white teeth. But she raised the shield higher and the sword, and she stepped forward. And each time she did, it roared louder and louder. But each step she made towards the dragon, it seemed in her eyes to get smaller and smaller and smaller. Until eventually when she reached it, in amazement, She looked down on the ground, and there it was like a little green lizard in the sand. Well, she put down her shield, she put down her sword, and she bent down and scooped it up and looked at it nose to nose. And in wonderment she said, "Dragon, tell me, who are you?" Dragon, watchful, green-scaled, yellow-eyed, red, flickering tongue, it hissed, "La la 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 la. They call me Fear. My name is Fear. La 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 la." And with that, it disappeared in a puff of smoke.